Hey guys, welcome back to yet another banner review video on Sword of Convalera Global. In this video, I'll be covering the upcoming banner where Auguste, I don't really know how to pronounce his name, but I'll just call him Auguste here in this video. Since the launch of the global version of the game, Auguste has been one of those characters that has been greatly hyped by the community. That being said, he isn't one of those characters that you really want to go in blind for. He is one of those that you really want to know how his kit works and prepare beforehand, but I'll cover that in this video. So on this one slide here, I've compiled some of the passives and skills and his character trait that I find to be particularly interesting, and I want to take your attention first to his character trait, which is on the top right hand side, because it is his trait that actually makes him shine, and you need to understand how his trait works. So the whole thing about Auguste is that he relies on building stacks of rage throughout the entire battle. Each time Auguste does an active attack, or if he goes on standby, he gains 1 stack of rage, and when his stack reaches 6, he gains 1 free turn. Along on his free turn, he also gains 2 turns of Rage Outburst. Rage Outburst is a special buff for himself where he adds 40% to 70% depending on the rank of his trait of his magic attack to his physical attack stat for the next 2 turns. Essentially, he hits much harder for the next 2 turns. This means that Auguste's damage is very bursty sort of. The whole idea is that you keep a close eye on his rage stacks, and once his stacks are very close to 6, you quickly pile on buffs on him, then you go wild with him, try to get in an attack, get the extra turn, get the rage outburst, and move in for 1 huge attack. Now the strength of this mechanic, as with many legendary characters, is greatly dependent on how many stars you have for his character trait. At just 1 star of his trait, he starts off with 0 stacks of rage, and you need him to gain 6 stacks to get the free turn, and he only gains 40% of his magical attack into his physical attack with the rage outburst. At 3 stars, this is significantly improved, where he starts the battle with 2 stacks of rage already, and on top of that, his rage outburst adds 70% of magic attack to his physical attack stat. So a 3 star is really a big upgrade to 1 star. However, 4 star and above is where Auguste truly shines, and the hyped Auguste that you see is really a 4 star and above Auguste, because at 4 star and above, he starts the battle with 4 stacks of rage, and if you give him something that can gain an additional stack of rage at the start, such as using a flying arm guard attack, he can get an extra action as early as the first turn, which also means that he can gain access to Rage Outburst as early as round 1. The last thing I want to mention about his trait is that his stacks of Rage isn't just an empty buff. Each stack of Rage also gives him a bonus 3% to physical attack. So as his stacks of Rage grow bigger and bigger, he does more and more damage. After 6 stacks though, the entire 6 stacks will be consumed, and then you have to start accumulating from 1 stack again. Moving on to his signature skill. His signature skill, which is on the bottom right hand side, works pretty much very similarly to how Ravilla's Tropical Cyclone works. The main difference is his primary skill has 3 variations, so you use the first step and then you unlock the second step, you use the second step and you unlock the third step, use the third step and you go back to the first. The first is a charging attack, but the main difference between this and Ravilla is that his charging attack only goes to 2 tiles versus Ravilla's 3 tiles, so his range is actually shorter than Ravilla's. His step 2 is quite interesting. His step 2 is an AoE attack that does a 3x2 area, but the main goal of this is to land a juicy physical defense down debuff on all enemies that it connects to. So this is a very handy way to lower the enemy's defenses. And if you time Auguste really well, where you do his step 2, when he gets 6 stacks of rage, he automatically gets another extra turn after that. where you can then capitalize on the physical defense down to do some really big damage to the groups of enemies in front of him. His step 3 is a single target attack primarily, and I say primarily because it does do a little bit of splash damage as well. It has a huge modifier at 160%, so it's pretty good, not the highest in the game, but along with the nice damage that it does to the primary target, it also does 40% damage to all enemy units 1 tile surrounding the primary target, so there's a little bit of splash damage in it as well. Definitely one of his signature skills overall. Throughout his kit, he does have very interesting skills, but the other thing about Auguste is that you really want to build him up all the way to rank 11 to unlock his Rev Devastation attack, because that is one of his key skills. I guess by now most people will have no problems unlocking him, but if you're new to the game and you don't have the resources to rank up a lot of characters, say you haven't hit Voyager rank 60, take note that his big AoE attack is his ultimate rank 11 move. Anyway, right at rank 3, you actually get 2 very interesting skills, both with its own pros and cons depending on what situation you are in. The first on the left is Warm Touch, and that is a passive that increases Auguste's longevity on the field. And if you don't have him at very high stars yet and you want him to stick around longer to build stacks of rage, this may be the way to go, because this gives him a 10% HP heal each time he hits one target. It can only trigger once per round, but if you do an AoE attack, every enemy hit in that attack will heal him for 10% HP. So if you do something like his Rev Devastation, his Tearing Whirlwind, or his step 2 Rev Snap attack, he can actually potentially heal quite a bunch of his HP, which makes him a very difficult character to take down. However, my personal favorite is the one on the right hand side of his rank 3 skill, which is the Hassle support skill. So this is a support skill, so you have to actually click on it to use it, and then it goes on a 4 turn cooldown, so you can't spam it a lot throughout the entire battle. But it is a very handy skill because this skill instantly gives Auguste 2 stacks of rage, as well as a physical shield equaling to 60% of his physical attack stat and magical attack stat, as well as a damage reduction buff. So this makes him tougher overall and more difficult to kill due to the shields, but importantly, because it instantly gives him stacks of rage, you can quickly use this to hit 6 stacks of his rage and get an extra turn. So if you say you're in a bind and you really need him to get an extra turn, or there's a big group of enemies, he's very close to 6 stacks, and you want to land physical defense down followed by a big attack, you can use this passive to gain his 2 stacks of rage and then potentially take down a big group of enemies. If Auguste is injured status as well, he also gets a bonus additional 1 stack of rage and a damage up buff for 2 turns. So definitely this skill combined with his active AoE attacks can potentially turn the tides of battle. At rank 5, he gains access to a very nice reaction ability called Contempt, where it gives him firstly a flat 15% reduction in damage taken, so it makes him much more tanky, and it actually combines very nicely with his rank 3 Hassle. Even with both together, it will be actually tougher to take down his shields, let alone damage Auguste. But importantly, with his rank 5 reaction, every time he's attacked, he gains 1 additional stack of rage, so he should be at the front of the battlefield in most cases, so it is expected that he will take 1 or 2 hits, and this actually helps him get an extra turn much more earlier. It does have a limit of only activating 2 times per round, but really with most characters you also don't want to get hit more than twice a round. It's likely going to take your character down if 3 or more enemies are wailing on you. At rank 7, he gains access to a move called Tearing Whirlwind, which isn't really an exclusive move. It's a standard AoE around a 1 tile radius, but the important thing is that it does inflict a null healing received debuff on all enemies hit. So in situations where you really want this debuff, and a good example is in the Fireside Chat in the non-Samantha stage, where the enemy's healing is significantly boosted, and the non-Samantha can heal all allies on the field. So landing null healing receive is a good way to counter that, and if you're having trouble on that stage around the time of this video, then definitely Auguste can help you out. Beyond that, if you don't need to inflict this debuff, then there's no need to equip this skill, keeping in mind that of course he can only keep 3 active skills at one time. Finally, his big bad attack is at rank 11, which is the Rev Devastation attack. If you have played Chapter 11 in Fool's Journey, you probably would have used this skill a bunch of times, and I'm really impressed by the range of this skill. It's a 3x4 area, hits every enemy on this area, and it does 90% damage to each enemy hit. But the main reason why this skill is very useful is that it also dispels 2 buffs on every enemy hit, which is pretty big. Especially personally for myself, I don't even have a good dispeller in my roster. This is one of the reasons why I want to pull for Auguste. Although it is pretty heavy, it does require 4 energy and it's on a 3 turn cooldown. At least I now will have a way to dispel buffs if I need to with Auguste. Alongside this, if he does have the Rage Outburst, which is triggered when he hits 6 stacks of Rage, he also has a 50% chance of inflicting stun on each target hit, and that is definitely a nice bonus. So keeping his rank 11 attack in mind, this is one of the things I wanted to mention specifically for Auguste. One of the very good weapons you can get for him is the Tuning Hammer legendary weapon for him. This hammer has the ability to also dispel buffs on every target hit. At 1 to 2 star rank, it dispels only 1 buff, but if you get it to 3 star rank and above, it dispels 2 buffs at once. And this actually can synergize and combine with his Rev Devastation attack. If you recall, I just covered this skill where I mentioned that Rev Devastation dispels 2 buffs by itself. If Auguste has the 3 star and above Tuning Hammer, he can dispel an additional 2 buffs every time he uses Rev Devastation, which means that that attack would then be an AoE 4 buff dispelling move. Even outside of Rev Devastation, you can't always spam that attack due to its high energy cost and cooldown. Auguste does also have other AoE attacks that can make good use of Tuning Hammer, so I would definitely recommend this weapon if you're pulling for Auguste. Finally is the Flying Arm Guard. Flying Arm Guard, I guess most people will probably know by now because it's one of the best in slot for Sophia. I would also recommend, if you have a spare copy lying around, to save it for Auguste, because the instant attack that you can do with it is also considered an active attack, which means that using Flying Arm Guard would also give Auguste 1 additional stack of Rage. And if you're using Auguste, like I said at the start of the video, it's all about building Rage stacks and proccing the extra turn as many times as possible throughout the battle, and at the right opportunistic time it can really do some serious damage on the enemy party. So finally, thoughts on Auguste, and he does have his pros and cons, I have to say. If you do build him up pretty highly, in terms of his character trait, especially at 4 star and 5 star, he is extremely strong. The main highlight for him is the rage mechanics, allowing free actions, which is always nice, especially for a breaker character that can do some serious damage. He does have a ton of utility. He does have AoE capabilities, he does have buff dispel, he does inflict null healing, and a physical defense 2 down debuff as well. However, it is not all green with Auguste. He has very low mobility, as with many breakers, and his rage mechanics are extremely slow below 3 stars. Only at 3 stars it becomes decent, at 4 stars it becomes really good, at 5 stars it's really insane. And if you've seen many people or many videos hyping Auguste saying he's really strong, generally most of that is looking at a 4 or 5 star Auguste. Most people won't have that when you pull for him. Well, ideally speaking, you probably only get 1 or 2 copies and you have him at 1 or 2 stars only. Below 3 stars, his rage mechanics are really slow, and in all likelihood you'll only be activating his extra turn once or twice, at most maybe 3 times per battle. Whether that is enough or not for you is dependent on what your preference is. So unless you're a whale and you want to pull many copies when his banner drops, getting Auguste means a very long grind on the memory daily event, and getting enough memory shards to get him to 4-star is going to take quite a long time to get him to the point where many videos are referring him as the big powerhouse he is. Not only that, he's not one of those characters that you want to play sloppily. Using him optimally would mean that you need to carefully monitor his rage stacks or his rage count, and as he moves around the battlefield, you want to plan when to get the 6 stacks and get the extra turn to do the most damage. You'd also want to pair this with looking at his energy and cooldowns, because it will be really terrible if you get his free action and his big skills like his breath devastation is on cooldown, or he's out of energy to use any of those skills. That being said, I don't think he's utterly terrible even at 1-star or 2-star. He can function. I would say he's okay, average, maybe even decent, but at 1-star to 2-star personality trait, he really isn't the tier 0 super top tier damage dealer that many people would claim he is, especially at the China server. For myself, I'm definitely going to be pulling for him. The main reason for my case, I suppose, is I really only have Ravia now as my one and only breaker. I don't have any other breakers. I have 2 or more of all the other character types, and so I think it's a good time to get a second breaker. The second reason is I don't have any buff dispeller at all in my entire party, other than maybe Ravia with her dispelling strike, but that's like one buff. Most of the time I have to rely on the judgment turret, and that's too risky for me for the long term. I would rather have a character that can dispel many buffs on command, especially on more than one enemy unit at a time, and at least Auguste can fit that build as I slowly grind him to 3-star and above. Many people would say that it's not worth it because it takes many months to grind him to 4 and 5-star trait. However, 3-star wouldn't take as long, and 3-star is actually pretty good for Auguste. It's not as strong as 4-star of course, but it already is a huge improvement over 1 and 2-star personality trait. That's it for this video. As always, I hope it's been helpful. Until then, I'll catch you guys in the next banner review video. Bye!